From South Carolina Public Radio, this is Who, What, When, an hour of history, games, and trivia. I'm Daniel Thompson.
And I'm Brandon Gray. This week, we're discussing the great kaleidoscope that is America, with games about people and things that we now think of as completely American, but actually came from other parts of the world.
Coming up later this hour, we'll see how well you know celebrities who were born elsewhere, hear 3 stories about very American brands that may or may not be true, and speak with historian Walter Edgar about the peoples and cultures that came together to make up the American South.
And if you'd like to join us for these games, all you got to do is call or text us, 803-470-6347. One more time, that's 803-470-6347, or you can send us an email to whowhatwhen@scpublicradio.org, and you could have a chance at getting that title, the Who What When Chamber of the Week, and our version of a trophy. Some are saying it's better than a trophy.
Some are saying it's better.
It's the Who What When fanny pack.
Brand, we're focusing on the land of opportunity today.
The good old US of A.
That's right. That's right, buddy. Everybody loves a chant. We're talking about how America attracts people from all over the world to bring their hopes and dreams to our country. And throughout this episode, we're going to learn about people who came here and achieved greatness, as well as ideas, foods, products, culture that weren't originally American, but were brought here and made even better.
Like pizza, like public radio quiz shows.
I love where your head's at. I love what you're bringing, the energy. Should we get to our first game?
I think we should, and we have 2 contestants. They already called. This is incredible. We got 2 contestants on the line to play with us today.
Caller number 1, what's your name? Where are you from?
Hi, my name is Erin, and I am from that Greenville, South Carolina.
Shout out.
That Greenville, South Carolina. We love Greenville. That's where we live.
That's exactly
it's unbelievable.
Right. Are you? How do you feel about this one going into? Do you feel pretty confident about knowing like where things come from and stuff like that?
Before this, I would have said yes, 100%, but I'm a longtime listener of Who, What, When, and I feel like Dan might try to trick me a little bit, so I'm a little hesitant going into this game.
Wow. I feel like my reputation, unfortunately, precedes me here, and that's no good.
That's unfortunate. Yes.
Erin, you're not as confident as you originally thought you were based upon the topic or just being on the show?
Just you in general.
Just me in general.
The topic, I think I'll be able to figure it out. I think I'll be able to talk it out, but... Yeah. I think you're going to throw some tricky questions in there. Okay,
just me in general. Got it. Let's see if our other contestant has any misgivings about me in general. Caller number 2, what's your name? Where are you from?
Hi, I'm PD Bachman, and we've got a Greenville off because I am also from Greenville.
Wow.
Oh, my gosh. The upstate's finest here. PD,
what are your thoughts on Dan? Pretty concerned about this?
I think Dan is a great guy.
Oh, that's sweet.
This is a good answer from PD.
That's a good answer.
A good answer from PD.
Yeah. I'm excited about this, and I think it's important for us to talk about this in America by having 2 contestants from the same small town in the same state. I think that really diversifies the episode, and I think it's going to be really good.
That's how we do things here. So the first game we're going to play is called As American As...
Ellipses.
If I say as American as, what do you say afterwards?
Apple pie.
Apple
Easy,
pie.
every day.
Baseball, hot dogs, Ford trucks. So here's what this game is going to be. Don't do it. Start on the
Love that guy.
Oh, my goodness. So these are all questions about things that we believe are inherently American.
That's right.
American by nature. And it turns out they're not from America.
No.
They're from somewhere else entirely.
I have a feeling that this game's going to burst my bubble a little bit.
A little bit. It might hurt your feelings a bit.
Okay. But I'm a man. I can do this. I'm a grown-up.
You're a grown-up. So we said. Let's get started on our first game on Who What When As American As. Erin, are you ready for your first question?
Yes.
Here we go. It seems like a no-brainer that the U.S. invented this immensely popular interactive quiz show. Like you wouldn't even need to ask the audience. But it turns out the Brits actually got there first. Is that Jeopardy, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, or The Price is Right?
When you were reading the question, my gut said Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and that's one of the options. So I'm going to go with Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
How about
She
that?
didn't even need to ask the audience, Brand.
She didn't need a multiple choice.
Or a 50-50 even. Where you cut one of them in half. I don't know, there's only 3. Good luck there. She's correct. She's correct. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Not American, Brand. Can you believe that?
I can't and I won't. No. I refuse to believe that anybody other than Regis Philbin has hosted that show, and I know it's still on the air.
If you
I refuse to believe it.
High school me that this isn't American, I'm going to punch you.
That's the only correct answer.
You don't talk about Regis that way.
You'd punch him and then you say final answer.
ABC, primetime, that's as American as it gets.
Absolutely.
All right, PD. Aaron got her first one right. We're coming to you next for your first question here on As American As. Your question. The United States has been an automotive juggernaut virtually since Henry Ford introduced the Model T. But the original patent for the first true automobile was actually awarded elsewhere to the founder of Mercedes, which originates in A, England, B, Germany, C, Italy.
Okay, I think I've got this one. I do want to say I am a little surprised I was asked on here because my close friends Chase and Jonathan both did horrible, so I'm hoping I can do better. But I'm going to go with Germany.
He's going to go with Germany, and he is going to be correct.
Already better than his close friends Jonathan and Chase with his first correct answer. How about that?
Already better.
I like that we're getting friends.
That's right, who are all listening.
But
and
they're not competing against each other
right.
just throughout the week. I like that.
right.
That's as to who, what, when, way.
It's early, Bran. I don't want to sound the perfect game alarm yet. Don't hit it yet. But I think if we get a few more right, we may have to get... Nope.
Sorry,
don't do
I
it.
accidentally hit it.
That's right.
I cut it short.
We're back to Aaron. We're all tied up. We're playing As American As, talking about things we think are American but actually aren't. Aaron, your next question here. Most historians agree that the United States was actually not the first to deep fry chicken.
Oh, okay.
Instead, this method was taught to Americans by immigrants from this European country, which has a history of deep fat frying chicken dating back to the Middle Ages. Is that A, Wales, B, Ireland, or C, Scotland?
So you're telling me that fried chicken does not come from Kentucky?
I know. It doesn't even come from the South.
Well, of those countries, I would not have picked any of those off the bat. So my family comes from Ireland. For no other reason than that, I'm going to go with Ireland.
She's picking her hometown of Ireland. And she's incorrect.
Oh.
We're looking for that's a tough one. We're looking for Scotland. Scotland.
I don't know.
I was close.
Yeah, you were close.
Yeah.
Do we have any points for being close or no?
Proximity point? No, I'm sorry.
Oh, I love
the fact
proximity
that her
points.
family did migrate from Ireland, she's perfect guess for this.
Perfect guess.
She just happened to be wrong there.
Yes,
is all I'm saying.
This question is downright offensive.
Right.
As somebody from the South who eats pretty much a diet of fried chicken, I refuse.
You've
to
probably eaten chicken tenders while watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire so many times and thought, I'm doing the most American thing in the world.
I gotta go. I gotta go do that right now. It's been fun.
All right, it's still tied up. PD, a chance to take the lead. See if you can guess where this famous thing we think is American is actually from. Give me a break. The crispy, crunchy Kit Kat bar isn't American? Sure isn't. It arrived in the States in the 1970s, but was actually first manufactured in the town of York in this European country. Is that Ireland, Scotland, or England?
All right, this is a lot of pressure now that I could potentially take the lead. My brain is scrambling a little bit, but I feel like York sounds British. Let's go England.
York sounds British because it is.
Oh, that's good thought process right there.
He's got two.
Do you like Kit Kat bars, Speedy?
I do. I love them.
Yeah.
Break me off
Can
a
I
piece.
ask you a question, Dan?
Yeah, ma'am.
The snap,
Yeah.
the break, if you will.
Yes, the snap.
Does it serve a purpose or is it just for pizzazz?
I think the idea of having a bar that already has 4 portions in it, it's natural to say, give me a break. You know what I mean? Like, I know the Hershey's bar has little portions, but you don't say, break me off a piece of that Hershey bar. You don't do that.
You could, though.
You
That's
could.
interesting.
Yeah, take note, Hershey. All right, Petey's up 2-1. Aaron, we're back to you. Here we go. The idea that peanut butter wasn't invented here is, well, un-American. But while peanut butter actually first came from South America, when the ancient Aztecs and Incas ground up peanuts into paste, the patent for the first official peanut paste was given in 1884 to Marcellus Gilmore Edson on the other side of us. Is that in A, Russia, B, Canada, or C, Greenland?
Wow. Didn't see any of those options coming.
Fair
regarding
enough.
Peanut butter. Again, I would have assumed peanut butter was very American. I eat it almost every day. I'm going to go with Canada for no real reason except for it's close to America and we can kind of call it
In the
proximity point.
question, I said South America ground it up first, and then the patent was given to a country on the other side of us, which would be Canada.
Well, there you go. You gave the answer in the question.
Aaron gets it right. It's Canada. That's
I
right.
did catch the other side of us, but then you said Russia, which is on the other side of the world. So
That's right.
I didn't know where you were
Yeah,
going.
no,
There you go.
that's
That's
actually-
fair.
that's really fair, Aaron.
That's fair.
That's really fair.
That's fair. Shout out to peanut butter, though. I think we need to make that very clear. We love peanut butter. American or not, we love it.
Hey, peanut butter.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Shout out.
Unless you're crunchy, then get out.
I love a crunchy peanut butter.
I'm not interested.
I love a pulpy orange juice. I love a crunchy peanut butter. Say what you want. It's flavor.
You are so gross.
It's flavor.
You're gross.
It's called flavor.
Oh, are you?
It's called Flavor Town. We're grown men now. We don't need smooth peanut butter. All right. It's tied up.
But what if it gets stuck in my throat?
Oh, no. Once again, grown man. PD, it's your question here on As American As.
Hey, PD, do you like creamy or crunchy? It's not the question, but it's the question I'm asking you. Creamy or crunchy?
Crunchy.
There you go. Grown man. There he is. There it is. PD, your question here on As American As. Only in America is there an option to add bacon to literally any dish served at a fast food restaurant.
America.
But bacon is way older than our country. It's even older than the Romans.
Wow.
As curing pork belly can be found as far back as 1500 BC in this now prominent country in Asia. Is that A, China, B, Japan, or C, Thailand?
I'm trying to think who would be the most into pigs. I have no idea. Let's go Thailand.
He's going Thailand. He's incorrect.
Oh.
If you've not had a roast pork from a Chinese, like a good Chinese roast pork, you've not lived. China, which we have the most history on of any ancient Asian country, was where we found that they cured pork fat into bacon a solid 3,500 years ago, Brand.
How about that? And by PD's logic, the most into pigs.
The most into pigs, according
That's what
to
we
PD.
found out.
That's right. So here's the thing, is it's 2-2, and we have 2 questions left.
Yes.
So we're tied up with 2 questions left in this round. Aaron, are you ready for your last question of the round?
Yes, I am.
Baseball is American, sure, but hot dogs? Actually, not so much. The modern hot dog was created by Polish immigrant Nathan Handwerker, but the original sausage for the hot dog was created for the cities of Vienna and Frankfurt in this European country. Is that Germany, France, or Belgium?
I think you were looking for Nathan Handwerker there.
Handwerker.
Yes.
Belgium is throwing me off a little bit here, but I'm going to go with Germany.
Belgium's throwing her off. Didn't throw her off the scent too far because Germany is correct.
How about that?
Frankfurt and Vienna.
It makes sense to me. Belgium would have thrown me off too.
Well, if Austria was a choice, you'd have had a problem there, but this was before Austria,
Yep.
so you got
There you go.
There we go. Aaron 3, PD 2, last question. PD a chance to tie it up to end the first round. Your last question here on As American As. It's as American as apple pie. Well, maybe not. While pie dates back to the Greeks and Romans, the first utterance of apple pie dates back to the poem Menophon from this country, with the line reading, "Thy breath is like the steam of apple pies."
That's my type of poetry right
Is
there,
that
baby.
Ireland, England, or Scotland?
You know, I just want to say, if I do get this wrong, it does feel nice to have done better than Chase and Jonathan.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
can
He
hold
is
my head up high.
absolutely
knowing that.
throwing his boys
If I
under the
get it
bus.
wrong, let's lock in Scotland.
He's locking in Scotland, and he is locked in correct. He is not correct.
Okay,
incorrect.
that was
locked in correct.
locked
you
in
gave
correct.
me a
That's right.
false hope.
He's incorrect. We're looking for England. England is what we're looking for there.
This is Who What When. I'm Brandon Gray here with my buddy Daniel Thompson, and we're celebrating America today, aka the land of opportunity.
We sure are, and our contestants, Aaron and PD, are off to a great start. Let's see if they can keep it going in our next game, all about celebrities who we think of as American, but actually aren't.
Color me intrigued, Dano. That's coming up right after this break here on Who What When.
Welcome back to Who What When, South Carolina Public Radio's hour of history, games, and trivia. I'm Daniel Thompson, here with my co-host and good buddy Brandon Gray. And
Hello.
our topic today is the land of opportunity.
Yes.
People and things that weren't originally from America, but have made a major impact here.
Just like pizza. And before we get back to our games, we do want to remind you that you can be a part of a future episode of Who What When. It's very simple. Just call or text us, just like our contestants did today, 803-470-6347, or you can send us an email, whowhatwhen at stpublicradio.org.
Our contestants today, PD and Aaron from our first round, are still on the line. They're both from Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
Aaron currently has the lead. Let's see how she does in our next game, which is all about celebrities who we think of as American, but who are actually born in another country. It's a little game we're calling Who, What, Where From.
And here's how the game is going to go. Dan is going to read you clues about these famous people who really became household names during their time in America, but aren't actually from here. Some of these folks are actors, some are musicians, and some are famous for completely different reasons. We will give you 3 choices, and you need to guess which person we're talking about.
All right, Aaron, are you ready to play a little game called Who, What, Where From?
Yeah, I was born ready for this.
Born ready. I love it. Here's your first question. This inventor and physicist was born in Germany and is responsible for the world's most famous equation, the theory of relativity, as well as research leading to the atomic bomb. Is that J. Robert Oppenheimer, Thomas Edison, or Albert Einstein?
I've never seen Oppenheimer, so I'm going to go with Albert Einstein.
You've never seen Oppenheimer?
It's Oppenheimer, by the way.
Oh my gosh, it isn't. But you need to see that movie, but you're correct.
I love that really took you out of it.
You have to see Oppenheimer.
If Dan even thinks about Christopher Nolan, he needs like a 5-second reboot.
I do. If you're not going to say you've seen all of his oeuvre, then yeah. All right, we're going to PD for his question on Who, What, Where From. Here's your first question, PD. This British-born comedian grew up in the States, appeared in more than 70 movies, and performed for hundreds of thousands of U.S. soldiers around the world during his infamous USO tours. Is that A, Bob Hope, B, Bob Newhart, or C, Bob Saget?
Bob Saget, definitely not. Danny Tanner is not the answer here. I think I'm going to go with Newhart.
He's going to go with Newhart. He's going to be incorrect. Oh. Looking for Bob Hope. Famous USO tours, Bob Hope.
I got to be honest, I'm with you, though, PD. As long as it's not Bob Saget, I'm fine either way.
Man, Danny Tanner, shout out.
Shout out. Rest in peace,
Yeah, rest in peace, obviously. That's exactly right. Aaron, you got a chance to take a commanding lead.
This would be a big
here
one, Aaron.
On Who, What, Where From. Let's see if you can guess this celebrity correctly. This Israeli-born Academy Award-winning Harvard graduate played Jackie Kennedy, Darth Vader's wife, and a Marvel physicist, and a ballerina, all before her 40th birthday. Is that A, Julianne Moore, B, Natalie Portman, or C, Laura Dern?
I was really prepared to go into this question and blow the commanding lead, but I'm a big fan of Force Fridays on Deck the Hallmark, so I know that this answer is Natalie Portman.
Shout out to Deck the Hallmark. That's a fun podcast. She's a Portmaniac, and she's correct. Natalie Portman is correct. Can you imagine? I'm 41. I haven't done any of this stuff. I haven't played Darth Vader's wife not once.
Not once, but hey, never give up, brother.
That's right.
I had no idea she was Israeli born. I'm learning something here.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that.
This is the point of the show, really, I think, if you get down to it.
Absolutely.
All right, PD, I'm not saying this is a must-have, but it's a must-have.
It's a must-have, PD.
Your question here on Who, What, Where From to get back in the game.
Here we go.
Who is quite possibly the greatest American game show host in history? The answer? This Canadian quizmaster that has hosted 37 seasons of Jeopardy! Is that A, Pat Sajak, B, Richard Karn, C, Alex Trebek?
Man, if I got this wrong, I would be ashamed of myself. It's Trebek.
It's Trebek. It sure is. Can you imagine if Al Borland hosted 37 seasons?
I don't think so, Dan.
I don't think so. That's nicely done.
Thank you.
You put it on the tee. You nailed it. That's right. PD's back in the game. That's a big get for PD. Aaron, a chance to regain that bigger lead. This Hungarian-born journalist and publisher ushered in an age of immediate news, yellow journalism, and these awards established to recognize excellence in American journalism, photography, literature, history, poetry, music, and drama. Is that A, Alfred Nobel, B, Joseph Pulitzer, or C, Dave Booker?
I'm going to use a lifeline, knock one of those answers out. I think it's going to be between Nobel and Pulitzer. I'm going to go with Pulitzer.
She's going to go with Pulitzer. She took her time. She's correct. Joseph Pulitzer.
Oh, boy.
Famous
How about
journalist.
that?
She's on a roll right now.
She is on a roll.
She's on a roll. PD, your back's up against it here. We ready?
I'm not saying it's impossible, though.
I'm ready.
Let's do this. Actually not from Panama, this Dutch-born musician was ranked by Rolling Stone as the 4th greatest guitarist of all time. Right now, you can listen to music from the band he founded with his brother Alex and jump from classic track to classic track. Is it A, John Bon Jovi, B, Eddie Van Halen, and C, Timmy Eagles?
Now I'm just thinking, like, what sounds better, Alex Bon Jovi or Alex Van Halen?
That's a good question.
Alex Eagles? You're throwing that out, though.
Alex Eagles? That sounds like a pro wrestler.
It does.
I'm going to go with Alex Van Halen. I'm going to go with Van Halen.
He's going with Van Halen. He's correct. He's off the schneid. He's back on board, saving his game so far. That's Eddie Van Halen we're looking
And
for.
shout out, Dan. I want to give credit where credit's due. You did a great job with that question with 3 Van Halen song titles thrown into the middle of the question.
That's right.
Really well done, Dan.
Did the best I could with what I had.
Expertly done.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you calling that out.
Timmy Eagles.
I actually came up with Timmy Eagles as well, and that didn't get nearly as much credit.
That goes without saying.
Yeah. I thought it was really easy. I thought it was going to slip right by there. Aaron, your next question, you're on Who, What, Where From. Born in Czechoslovakia, this political scientist originally lived in the U.S. because her father was a diplomat here, and she followed in his footsteps, breaking glass ceilings along the way, becoming the first female Secretary of State in 1997. Is that A, Jeanette Rankin, B, Hillary Clinton, C, Madeleine Albright?
Well, I feel like there's a lot of pressure on this. I feel like I'm doing feminism a disservice if I get this wrong.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. We didn't say that.
I'm going to go with Madeleine Albright.
She's going to go with Madeleine Albright, and she's hoping against all hope that she's correct here. And she is correct. Madeleine Albright. Madeleine Albright.
Thank goodness.
That's right.
That was a sneaky one.
Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, but later, not during her
That's
husband's
right. And there was
presidency.
recency bias. I would have there was so much talk of breaking glass ceilings when she was running for president.
That's right.
And that was once again credit to Dan.
For $1 million.
Timmy Eagles.
For $1 million, tell me who Jeanette Rankin is.
So Rankin and Bass, they made a lot of Christmas specials a long time ago, and so ahead of her time.
Yeah, first woman elected to Congress. So
and the stop motion animation.
So both hands. Yeah. I'll get your $1 million. I'll Venmo you.
Thank you. Incredible work.
All right, PD, you pretty much have to have this one. Your next question here on Who, What, Where From. This Austrian-born American has done it all. Destroy robots from the future? Check. Governor of the most populated state in the U.S.? Check. Become Turbo Man? You got it. Is that A, Arnold Schwarzenegger, B, Christoph Waltz, or C, Wolfgang Puck?
I don't know who he is. I'm gonna go with.
I don't think Yoda was one of the choices.
That's the best Arnold I can do. Okay, I'm 25. I haven't seen that much Arnold.
He's going with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's correct.
Wow.
Staying alive.
Get to the chopper.
Get to the chopper. That's exactly right. Correct, your answer is. All right, Aaron, the board's back to you here on Who, What, Where From. Alan Rickman thoughtlessly gave Emma Thompson this Canadian-born singer's CD for Christmas in Love Actually, who was right about most everything. The Big Yellow Taxi, paving paradise, and even putting up parking lots. Is that A, Neil Young, B, Joni Mitchell, or C, Alanis Morissette?
I can picture that scene in the movie. I know that the CD is the same size as a necklace box.
Yep.
But that doesn't help
All
me.
the important stuff.
I'm going to go with Joni Mitchell.
She's going to go with Joni Mitchell, and Aaron's correct again.
Wow.
I think she's missed one so far in the total.
Really well done by Aaron.
Crushed it. After 2 rounds, Aaron with 8, PD with 5. That means Aaron from Greenville, South Carolina is moving on to the final round to have a chance at the Who What Win fanny pack. Aaron, how you feeling?
I'm feeling so great. Taking some time out of my work day to compete for this coveted fanny pack. I'm hopeful.
Okay, I hope you took the time off in PTO. PD, you were a great contestant. You were 25 and you did your best. You came up a little short here, but we really appreciate you coming on and playing a little Who What Went.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, and congratulations to Aaron. I didn't realize I was going up against a trivia master today. I really wish I was going up against Jonathan or Chase, one of my friends who stuck at trivia.
Man!
But, it's all good.
He is making sure they don't hear the end of it.
Yeah, it is true. You would have beaten both of them. So there
That's
you go.
True. That's true.
There you go.
PD, thanks for playing.
This is Who, What, When. I'm Brandon Gray here with my buddy Daniel Thompson, and we're celebrating the land of opportunity this week.
That's right, Brand. Our contestant Aaron is heading to our final round today for a chance to win that sweet, sweet Who, What, When fanny pack. Let's see how she does. But first, we're going to speak to our boy, Wally Edge.
Oh, boy.
Historian Walter Edgar about the history of the American South.
That's coming up after this break right here on Who, What, When. Welcome back to Who, What, When, an hour of history, games, and trivia right here on South Carolina Public Radio. I'm Brandon Gray.
And I'm Daniel Thompson. This week we're talking about the great melting pot that is the United States of America, with games about people and things that we think of as American but actually came from somewhere else.
That's right, and we're going to get back to those games in just a few minutes. But first, we wanted to welcome a very special guest to the show. He's a voice that you might recognize from some of our episodes, some of my favorite episodes, in fact. But you most definitely recognize him from his own podcast, South Carolina Public Radio's Walter Edgar's Journal. Historian Dr. Walter Edgar is here with us. Hello.
Hello, and it's great to be with you guys live instead of on tape.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No,
you always come in.
always
This is
here
always
live,
it's always
right?
live. It's always live.
Well, Walter, we call you Wally Edge around here. Do you have people in the streets now say, "Hey, Dr. Wally Edge, it's good to see you"?
Usually it's, if they hear me, they recognize the voice, the face, I'm sorry, guys. It's great for radio. You guys got great faces for radio, too.
Thank you.
We do.
Yes,
We're all in that same boat
we
together.
are all there.
Don't
We were
sell
made for
yourself
this.
short, though, Wally Edge. You're a stunner.
A looker.
That's right. Now, you're here not just to do bits with us, although that would be fun. You're here because you're a historian. You have an actual doctorate, and we're talking about the land of opportunity. We're talking about the United States. We're talking about the fact that the fabric of the American identity is really patchwork from a lot of other cultures. So when do you think that idea, that melting pot idea, really took root in the United States? Or was that the intention of the founders?
Well, it just depends upon where you come from. For those of us here in South Carolina, we were a multicultural colony before the word was even invented. People began talking about the melting pot in the post-Civil War period of America, when there was huge immigration, even more from Europe, but different places. Southern Europe, for example, that's when the Italians began coming. Before the American Civil War, most European immigration was the United Kingdom, Norway, Germany, places like that. Northern Europe, certainly not Southern Europe. Or when we get to the turn of the 20th century, and gosh, that's a while back, you began to get immigrants from what was called the Levant, Syrian Lebanese, Christians coming, particularly to the southern states.
It really all does depend on when you're talking about as much as where you're talking about. Then.
Well, absolutely. South Carolina had at least 8 identifiable European ethnicities, 24 West African identifiable languages, and depending upon the count by the latest anthropologist, up to 46 different Native American nations or tribes. Divide those back to probably about 5 language groups. But we're really talking about a melting pot.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, it's hard to go a day without hearing the term American dream in some situation. Where did that term kind of come from, this idea of people coming here to chase the American dream, and why do you think that was a thing that people began to latch onto?
Before it was called the American dream, it was the South Carolina dream. No, seriously, people came here to get rich, came to South Carolina, and they made no bones about it. And that's where they went to other colonies. After all, Massachusetts started as the Plymouth Company, the Virginia Company. Okay, it was about making money. The difference was South Carolina, compared to those other 2 places, people did make money, and they made a lot of money. And how they did it today, people look back, they exploited the landscape, they exploited the labor force. Well, in the late 17th and early 18th centuries, nobody cared. It was making it that counted.
It was norm. That was the norm in the 16th, 17th centuries.
I mean, actually, the Lord proprietors of Carolina were sending basically advertising flyers to different parts of Europe, particularly the small German principalities, as well as the UK. And if you wanted to come to South Carolina and you got here on your own, the minute you stepped ashore, you got 50 acres of land. Now, in Europe, 50 acres of land is a lot. Now, if you brought a wife and kids, proportionally, you would get even more. So, come out here and make a buck.
So that's a great point. And then as we expand that to more people groups that were allowed to try to make a buck here, you speak of immigrants from different regions, specifically of Europe, but really all over the world. It seems to be that most of, at least in my study, most of the time that when those immigrant numbers spike from certain regions, it's because of something negative happening in their neck of the woods.
Well, that's part of it. And of course, again, going back to our local example, once South Carolina's authorities realized at the turn of the 18th century, about 1706, 1710, that they had a black majority population, they made a big effort to recruit more white settlers, which is where all of a sudden you get these generous land grants to get people to come over here. And actually, South Carolina did it at the turn of the 20th century. They began to recruit people from Greece and the Levant. And they very crudely said, "It's okay. They are almost white."
Yeah,
that was the term that was used by the authorities and by the folks who've been studying that particular period of immigration, because it's often neglected. Where do you think all of the great meat and three restaurants in South Carolina came from?
That's right. Exactly. Yep. No. There's a lot of that heritage here, and that's what makes us a great place. But it's fascinating that it initially didn't come to the melting pot. It came from fear. I mean, the Stono Rebellion in the 1700s, like people were scared that their norm, that their foothold was going to disappear.
It was a very close thing. The Yamasee War 20 years earlier was the same thing too. The makeup of the population, and very quickly the melting pot developed without even people saying, this is what we're going to do.
You know, a lot of this culture is this mix of it's always been here, it's geographic, and it's forced sometimes. Yeah. We have this idea in our head, and we have some history of this, Statue of Liberty. It's like, bring me your poor, your tired, your huddled masses. Is it just a political or partisan thing to have a celebration of this in our nation's history? Two, is that more of rhetoric, or do you think there's some truth there?
Well, as our nation expanded geographically, it needed to expand with new populations, move west, young man, move west. And, the expansion of the country, people said, this is the way to go. In the late 1890s, there was a historian who published a document saying the end of the frontier.
Frederick Jackson Turner.
Yes. You did have a good undergraduate education. Bless your heart.
Thank you, sir.
That's where we talked about the new frontier of space. They tried it with Alaska, which worked for the gold rush, but the idea that all of a sudden there wasn't any more frontier. If you go back 2 centuries, the frontier, it began in Jamestown, it began in the Charleston area. That was the frontier, and there was a frontier that was ever moving westward. And then all of a sudden, whoops.
We're out.
You move far enough and you've run into California.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
So
I want to ask, we played a game earlier today about things that we wrongfully assume are American-made. Do you have a favorite example of something that we think of being like classically American, but is not actually?
Pajamas.
Oh, wow. That was quick.
Yeah.
Wally Edge just got it loaded. We didn't have to.
What's the deal with pajamas?
Pajamas are Indian.
Wow.
In design and word.
So we were just like sleeping in naked or like in street clothes before the pajamas?
Usually sleeping in a nightshirt.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the idea of a pajama set.
A pajama set.
Is Indian.
That's Indian.
That's fantastic.
I don't think I would have guessed that one.
Unbelievable.
I love that.
Fantastic. Dr. Walter Edgar is a historian, a host of South Carolina Public Radio's Walter Edgar's Journal, which you can find wherever you listen to podcasts. Wally Edge, thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, hey, my pleasure, guys.
This is Who, What, When, South Carolina Public Radio's hour of history, games, and trivia. I'm Daniel Thompson here with my good buddy and co-host Brandon Gray, and this week's show is all about America's place as the land of opportunity.
It's been a good one, Dano. Before we get to our final game, a quick reminder that you, yes, you, could be a future contestant on this show. All you got to do is call or text us, 803-470-6347, or you can send us an email to whowhatwhen@stpublicradio.org.
Our contestant, Erin, is from Greenville, South Carolina, and she won our first 2 rounds to claim the title of Who What When Champion of the Week.
Yeah.
But that's not enough.
No.
She now has a chance to win our famous trophy, the Who What When Fanny Pack. All she has to do is get through our final game today. It's one we play a lot here. It's called History or His Story, the Taste of America edition.
I love it. Here's how the game's going to work, Aaron. Dan is going to read you stories from history about 3 major American food brands who were founded by people who either immigrated to America or were the direct descendants of immigrants. 2 of these stories, 100% true. They actually happened, while the other one was 100% made up, a.k.a. it is Dan's story. After each story, you're going to have a chance to talk it over with me. We can ask questions. You can ask for clarifying details, whatever you need. And after we get through all 3 stories, you will have to tell us which one is Dan's lie.
Erin from Greenville, are you ready for a little history or his story?
Yes, I am.
All right, we're going to start with Coca-Cola. Let me introduce you to Dr. John Stith Pemberton, local pharmacist in Atlanta, Georgia in the 1800s. He served as an officer in the Civil War and was shot off his horse and slashed by a sword.
Wow.
Was not the end of Dr. Pemberton. Following his time in war, he returned to being a chemist and running a pharmacy. But the problem is he was addicted to painkillers. Painkillers in the 1800s was morphine. Some sort of opioid was the way to deal with your pain. So he started a pharmacy so he could have easy access to the drugs he was addicted to.
That is a different type of addiction there, where you choose your occupation.
You reverse
to fuel
engineer
your
it.
habit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was a pharmacist before the Civil War. And then he comes back to it after he fights, obviously. So realizing how dangerous his addiction to morphine was, he decides to turn to a different drug to help him kick the morphine habit. You guessed it, cocaine. So cocaine in the 1800s, coca leaves was used for a lot of reasons, and he believed it would help him not go to morphine and opioids, and it was a lesser drug, basically, right?
Lesser of 2 evils, if you will.
So what he did was he would combine coca leaves, which is cocaine, with French wine, and that allowed him to ease right off of his morphine addiction. So he was just doing the coke.
That's and the alcohol.
That's right.
And
But
the alcohol.
He's also going to create the most known beverage in our country. So there is that. In 1886, a local prohibition law was enacted which did not allow the sale of low volume alcohol to parishioners. So if you wanted to go get 15 gallons of alcohol, you could do that. But if you wanted to go get a drink, you could not do that.
Right.
This kept Pemberton from accessing the French wine that he desperately needed to combine with his cocaine in order to not do the morphine.
Right.
He needed a substitute beverage. So he got the coca leaves, created a syrup that combined carbonated water and a soda fountain, and thus created this beverage that he began selling out of a jug he carried around with him around town. He had a cocaine sparkling juice jug, and he carried it around town and would pour people cups of it if they bought it. That is how this started, and people loved it so much, what with the Coke and all, that he started selling it in his pharmacy in Atlanta. Now, although he combined coca leaves with the cola nut with a K, that's Kola, Pemberton's partner Frank Robinson suggested an alliterative spelling of the beverage, Coca-Cola, CC.
Think of the marketing.
CK. Think of the marketing. Now, the Coca-Cola website will tell you that Pemberton never really realized the potential of his beverage, which is why he sold the company.
Oh.
But many believe that Pemberton had returned to his morphine addiction and he needed the money. So in 1888, he sells all of his shares in the company to a man named Asa Candler. By 1900, Coca-Cola becomes a driving force in the entire beverage industry of the United States and would soon do the same nationwide. That's the end of story number 1.
You know, I've always, I think most people have heard the rumors, if you will, about Coca-Cola and cocaine.
Yeah.
I'm under the impression that there's no longer cocaine in
There's
Coca-Cola.
not cocaine in it. The name of it, Coca, comes from the coca leaf.
Right.
That's where it comes from.
Was the taste of the beverage that he created anywhere similar to the beverage that we know today as Coca-Cola?
I would assume that it had a similar idea. Coke, the recipe is so famous now that they tried to change it and people rioted, right? Like they hated it. So I would assume that there's some origin there for sure. Even though Asa Candler probably gets the lion's share of the credit on that.
Yeah.
Aaron, what do you think?
I mean, I don't really know a whole lot of history about Coca-Cola. So my initial thoughts are his name, like when you first said his name, it made me think of Dr. Pepper.
Dr. Pemberton.
And so I don't know if that's just trying to throw me off. I don't know. That's what I'm working on here.
All right.
That's really interesting. That's really
Clearly
interesting.
does not trust Dan.
She's established that early on that she doesn't trust you.
Yeah.
And I actually had a similar thought as you were saying it. Dr. Pepper, Dr. Pemberton, something to it. We'll find out. I'm interested in this story, though.
The next story is Betty Crocker, and it's about how a guy named Timmy Eagles.
Can you imagine?
Timmy Eagles, shut up. All right, here we go. Story number 2 starts right now. It's about Betty Crocker. For almost 100 years, the Betty Crocker Company has been an American institution, providing recipes, cooking instructions, and even food to the United States. To this day, over 63 million Betty Crocker cookbooks have been published. Let me introduce you to Betty Carver. From Washburn, New York. Her parents were British immigrants in the early 1900s. Betty's father came to America on a visa to help work on a new patent for early radar technology. Her parents were very philanthropic. Betty joined her mother and sometimes her father at the local soup kitchen in New York to prepare and serve food on a regular basis to give back to people in need. Betty also cooked for the family's Catholic church once a month. She discovered a love for cooking and at age 19, in 1918, entered a recipe contest in the Saturday Evening Post, which is a pretty famous publication of the early 1900s. The monthly contest allowed people across the country to submit their recipes as home cooks in hopes to be featured in a future edition of the Post. Betty won the contest with her recipe for lemon meringue pie. Winning a contest in the Post was nice, but didn't exactly open up many doors for Betty. Her parents, they helped her craft an entire cookbook, and she would give away the cookbook at church. She continued to enter the monthly contest in the Post for the prize money, and at one point had won the best recipe 8 months in a row for the Saturday Evening Post.
Shout out.
So at this point, General Mills, who clearly the general over there reads the Post, he requests to meet with Carver, and they offer to purchase all of her recipes and her namesake. Carver was keen on the idea of having her cookbook in stores, but wanted to retain her name.
Interesting.
And did not want to give the name Carver to them. They agreed upon the exchange for all her recipes in her book for a cool $2,000. Carver gave her recipe book to General Mills, which crafted a new name, Betty Crocker. And they used that name and an actress on the cover of the first Betty Crocker cookbook, which featured Betty holding a crock pot on the cover, and the rest is history. That's the end of story number 2.
A fascinating story. Can you do the quick math for me? $2,000 then would equate to...
Oh gosh, probably like 12 to 20,000 somewhere.
So not
in there.
nothing, but not what obviously Betty Crocker has made.
Oh gosh, no.
Over its time, which does sound pretty American. So this story tracks to me. It makes sense, and as somebody who's gone to a lot of church potlucks over the years, I can buy this story 100%.
You can buy it. Aaron, what do you think?
I love to bake, so I'm very well acquainted with Betty Crocker and the recipes and products. I never thought Betty Crocker was a real person. And so I'm hesitant, but the story also sounded really true and plausible. I'm with Bran on this. Like, it sounds possible.
Well, I mean, technically, Betty Crocker wasn't a real person in the story. Betty Carver was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I just didn't think Betty Crocker was even based on. I just thought it was like a brand name. Like I didn't think there was any truth to a Betty somewhere.
All right.
So if this story is true, I'm gonna have to go do some thinking because I've never heard this, but it sounded really good, and now I'm questioning a lot of things.
Do we know why she didn't want her name on it? Do we know?
Her dad, from what I understand, was very big on their name and the lineage. He was an immigrant.
Sure.
But I don't know anything aside from that.
Okay.
Her dad was very influential in her life. That's all I know. All right, are we ready for story number 3?
I'm ready.
Chef Boyardee.
Boy, are we.
So Chef Boyardee is a food company specializing in canned, freeze-dried Italian cuisine.
I know it well.
Mamma mia.
I know it well.
4 of the top 25 highest-selling canned foods in the United States are from Chef Boyardee, with their spaghetti and meatballs being their number 1 seller, selling over 60 million units in the past year. Let me introduce you to Ettore Boiardi, born in Piacenza, Italy in 1897. He began working as an apprentice chef at the local restaurant in town, La Croce Bianca. Mostly potato peeling and dealing with the trash. So not a lot of experience there.
Not quite chef.
As his parents moved to Paris and London, Ettore began picking up restaurant skills and working in multiple restaurants. At 16, he came to America through Ellis Island in 1914. Ettore, going by Hector at the time instead of Ettore, worked at the kitchen of the Plaza Hotel in New York City, becoming head chef of the Plaza Hotel's kitchen before the age of 25.
Credit card?
He served President Wilson at the White House, along with returning soldiers from World War I. And at the age of 29, he partnered with patrons of his restaurant that owned a local self-service grocery store chain. Together, they developed a process of canning pasta sauce and wrapping his dried pasta in plastic wrap to sell in stores. There was so much demand for this product that the team had to open a factory. They were buying their Parmesan cheese and olive oil straight from the mother country of Italy.
Wow.
Just like Chef Boyardee always does, right?
100%.
The company went public in 1929, had to move production into Pennsylvania in 1938 because they couldn't grow enough tomatoes in New York City.
That makes sense.
They branded the pasta the way Ettore's last name was being pronounced in America, Boyardee. So instead of Boyardee, they did Boyardee to make it more accessible to Americans. Boyardee helped supply Allied troops rations during World War II, and by 1985, the year of Chef Boyardee's death, the company was grossing $500 million a year.
That's a lot there.
Mamma mia.
Really quickly, just to make sure that I got it right, unlike Betty in our previous story, Chef Boyardee was a part of the company the whole way through?
The whole way through,
Okay.
yes. He started it from the beginning. Aaron, what are you thinking?
I've seen a lot of movies about the plaza, and no one has ever mentioned Chef Boyardee. And I feel like if you had Chef Boyardee working for you, wouldn't you want people to know
what?
that?
By that logic, in Home Alone 2, Kevin McAllister definitely would have been eating some Chef Boyardee. That's a really good point, Aaron.
If you watch...
Right? Like, he wouldn't be eating a pizza, he'd be eating Chef Boyardee.
That's exactly right.
Fun fact, if you watch Oppenheimer, Chef Boyardee's in there. Trust me, watch it.
Yeah,
Chef. There's a lot to think about in these stories here.
All right. Well, you give us some thoughts real quick before you give your answer. I'll let you know my thought process here, Dan.
I'd love to hear it, Bran, because you look very bewildered on this one.
I am. I am a little bit bewildered. I think Coca-Cola, I feel pretty confident about. Just in hearing bits and pieces of Coca-Cola, it kind of matches up with what I've heard.
Okay.
Betty Crocker and Chef Boyardee, I'm having a tough time with it. My gut is saying that Chef Boyardee is your story.
Okay.
That's what my gut is saying, just because...
Now, your gut's been wrong before.
It's been wrong almost every time. But when I think of Chef Boyardee, I think of the silly illustration, kind of like a caricature of what they think an Italian chef would look like and sound like. I just think that it's made up. I think it's a made up character, a made up name. And I don't think that there's any truth behind somebody named Boyardee. That's what I'm going to go with.
All right, Aaron. We have Coca-Cola, Betty Crocker, Chef Boyardee. What are you thinking? And then tell me which story you think is my story.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Bran a little bit here.
Okay, fair enough.
Right out of the gate, I thought Coca-Cola might be your story just based on Dr. Pepper over there, but. Everything else in that story seems plausible, and so I'm just going to say that that was his name, and the relation to Dr. Pepper is unintentional. I also feel like, I originally am from Massachusetts. It's where I grew up, spent a lot of time in New York City, and I have never heard of Chef Boyardee being a real person and being, working at one of the most famous hotels in the country. But I kind of childhood me baked a lot of Betty Crocker recipes, and I don't know. I just feel like young Erin would want me to vote and say that Betty Crocker is your story because she can't believe that Betty Crocker is a real person. So for that reason, I'm going to say I think Betty Crocker is your story.
All right.
She's going with Betty Crocker.
As good a thought
Way
process
to talk
you can
it
have.
out.
Yep.
That's really good. All right, let's get Coca-Cola out of the way. That was a true story.
Okay.
100% true story. Rest in peace, obviously, Dr. Pemberton. No relation to Dr. Pepper.
Okay.
Dr. Pember doesn't roll off the tongue, obviously.
Right.
Let's move on to Betty Crocker. The Betty Crocker story is my story.
Oh my gosh.
It is my story. Now, Aaron was 100% right. Betty Crocker, not a real person. The only truth in that story is they did hold a contest in the Saturday Evening Post, basically just a milling scene, and they wanted to create a character to get people excited about their flour. This company called Gold Medal Flour. They were running a contest. They wanted people to get excited about the flour. So they created a woman named Betty Crocker. So it is a creation. It is not a true story. Chef Boyardee.
Wow.
True story.
How about
My man's
that?
peeling potatoes and moving on up to the plaza.
I hope that his family has kept some sort of ownership stake in that company.
I would hope so too, but I have
Good
no
for
idea
them.
to know that. Aaron, that means you guessed correctly, and you're the Who What Win Champion of the
Getting
Week.
a fanny
You're
pack,
getting a fanny
Aaron.
pack, Aaron.
Woo!
Yeah, I know. It's a big deal.
I'm so excited. I can't wait to wear that fanny pack everywhere, tell people about this show. I'm so excited.
What a player, what a game. Aaron, thanks for joining us on Who What Win.
Thank you so much for having me.
We've reached the end of this edition of Who What Win, all about the land of opportunity, the good old USA. Thanks again to our contestants Aaron and Petey for joining us. Another round of applause for Aaron for taking home this week's title of Who What Win Champion.
Our producer is A.T. Shire, and our executive producer is Sean Birch, who wishes he could be having a Coke right now. This show's a production of South Carolina Public Radio and is made possible in part by listener contributions to the ETV Endowment of South Carolina.
Join us for a future episode of Who What Win. Just call or text us 803-470-6347 or send us an email to whowhatwin@scpublicradio.org.
You can find out more about the show on our website, southcarolinapublicradio.org/whowhatwin.
And you can listen to a supersized version of the show in your favorite podcast app or through your smart speaker.
I'm Daniel Thompson.
And I'm Brendan Gray. Join us again next week for more history, games, and trivia right here on Who What Win.